My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about two Pink Floyd albums that David Gilmour is not a big fan of. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Tell me if you like these albums or not. So let's start. Well, the first one, he mentioned it in an interview back in the 80s with B. Pinell, and it was released in 1969, and it is Umaga. He was never really a big fan of this album, and back then in 1969, Pink Floyd was really more progressive, and it wasn't really the commercial or the commercial sound, a little bit more approachable by the masses, let's say, people who are not really maybe that into progressive rock that would like. I mean, Pink Floyd went mainstream with Dark Side of the Moon. There are people who like some of their songs, but they're not really big progressive rock fans, or they even know what is progressive rock. But so back then they were a little bit more progressive maybe, and he said that in the interview with B. Pinell, he wasn't a big fan of the album Umaga. And in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine in 2011, he said this: we were, about that era of the band, we were fairly brave, and we would put anything on a record that amused us one way or another. But in some of those moments, we were floundering about. We didn't have our forward momentum very clear, and inspiration might have been a bit thin on the ground at times. That's what Gilmour said about that era. So it explains a little bit why he doesn't really like some of the albums of their era, and that connects us with the second one, which is the album released after Umaga. Already in Umaga, the band already didn't have Syd Barrett. It only had Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright. And the second album he is not a big fan of is Atom Heart Mother. And this was released in 1997, a year after Umaga. And it has a few, I would say, a few more known songs, like Summer 68, which has Richard Wright on vocals. I think it's a really cool song. Probably my favorite one from their record. It also has Fat Old Son and Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast, which is quite remembered by Pink Floyd fans. That album, I would say, is a little bit more approachable than Umaga. I think it's a little bit less progressive, and you had a few tracks that could be played on the radio, like Summer 68 and Fat Old Son. So, it shows they already were in that path to finally record in 73 Dark Side of the Moon. But Gilmour talked about this album specifically back in 2001 in an interview with Mojo magazine, and he explained why he wasn't a big fan of it. This is what he said: "We didn't know where we were going in terms of recording, but we were pretty good live. We were very good at jamming, but we couldn't translate that onto record. Gradually, a direction revealed itself to us, a line that began with the Saucerful of Secrets track, all the way to Echoes via the long piece Atom Heart Mother. That was a good idea, but it was dreadful. I listened to that album recently. God, it's shit," is what he said. "Possibly our lowest point artistically. Atom Heart Mother sounds like we didn't have any idea between us, but we became much more prolific after it." That's what Gilmour said. I mean, those are harsh words, and obviously his opinion might have changed a little bit, at least, over the years, but he already played especially Fat Old Son, which is a song he likes, although he doesn't like the album, because he already played Fat Old Son a few times during his solo career, and it is part of his set list now in 2024. of his comeback to the world after 8 years or 9 years, if I'm not mistaken. Since 2015 or 16, he didn't tour, but it's part of his set list nowadays. So he's currently playing that song, and at least one track from that record is being played live, and it's Fat Old Son, a good track. And well, these are the two albums that we selected that Gilmour is not a big fan of, and it's curious that Nick Mason, the drummer, since after the band came to an end in the 90s, let's say, about touring and recording, although you had that album released after Richard Wright's death, that is from previous recordings. But it's interesting how Nick Mason's drummer filled that vacuum left by Gilmour and Roger Waters. I mean, Roger started his solo career, but obviously he left Pink Floyd and he started his solo career, but over the decades he had to embrace what he recorded with Pink Floyd. And I think he's totally right, because he wrote most of the songs, but most of the successful albums, and he really embraced the Pink Floyd experience, let's say, live, and he played mainly Pink Floyd tracks during his solo career over the past decades. And I had the opportunity to see him live twice, and I mean, it was pretty good. I was born after Pink Floyd sadly wasn't active anymore, so the only chance I had to hear those Pink Floyd songs live, at least with one original member of the band, one classic member of the band, it was by going to see him. Although he sometimes didn't play like the record, like in the last tour I had the chance to watch in 2023. He made an acoustic version of Comfortably Numb, man. But at least in the first show I had the chance to see the close to the original version with the guitar solo and etc. But so he embraced that Pink Floyd work in his solo career, playing live, and Gilmour had to do the same, but he was more balanced. Because Gilmour only toured when he had released a studio album. That's why it takes so long for him to tour. He's not touring every year like Roger Waters is always doing. So he only likes to go out when he has new music to show to the fans. So it's always a balanced set. If you analyze his set list for this recent tour, you're gonna see that it's quite balanced. It has some Pink Floyd songs, not maybe the most famous ones. You got songs from Pink Floyd songs from the era without Roger Waters, and a few other not particularly well-known songs of the band from the previous decades. And there's a lot of solo material he released recently in his album Looking Strange. So I'm saying all of this to say, and if you're a Pink Floyd fan, you already know this, that Nick Mason really filled that vacuum left by the two, because they rarely play the material before Dark Side of the Moon live. Those two, Gilmour and Waters. And Nick couldn't really compete with them going out and playing all the hits and etc. So he created a Saucerful of Secrets, the band. He's the leader of it, and they play mainly the pre-Dark Side of the Moon tracks, the pre-Dark Side of the Moon albums, things they recorded with Syd Barrett, and those albums like Umaga and Atom Heart Mother and all those other ones. So I think it's pretty cool that at least nowadays we got three. You know, it would be good if they were together, obviously, but at least we got three of the living members of the band touring and playing, you know, the discography of the band, and also showing new music, which is great. And that's it. I hope you liked the video. Please leave your comment. Tell me what you think, if you like these albums or not. And thank you for watching. And please subscribe. And also visit rockandrollgarage.com. Okay? Thank you, and see you later.